Thanks, Realty Plus, for this one more opportunity to moderate this panel. I kind of stepped in, I think, for someone who couldn't make it. So I'm hoping this conversation will be a little more, more conversational with all of us just talking and bringing in a lot of experiences, like personal experiences that we've had with regard to this topic. UX, or connecting UX in the built environment. The minute you hear the word UX, you're always thinking UI, UX, kids, what are they doing with something like that? So I just wanted to kind of connect back to this panel and their understanding of what UX is about. Maybe we will start with you, Sachin, Santosh. Sachin.
So, hi, I'm Sachin Goregaoker from GA Design. So, my understanding about user experience now, as we call, UX. So it's more about understanding the space. It's actually not. I mean, in today's generation, everybody talks about UX UI. It's more of about an app being created or how it is, but it's a more of a generic word. It's more like what is the user experience. So as architects, we've always been designing spaces. We've always been taught in architecture schools, and right from day one, it's like whatever we design, it's for the people who use it. So more of a user experience where you have the ability to design spaces, to create by using different materials. Like we always use like all different materials. There's light, and we play with light, shadow, and textures. So these kind of creates the environment for the people that are using it. So that, according to me, is a very important thing as far as user experience is concerned.
All right. And
So Fancy, first of all, hi, thanks for having me on this illustrious panel with rest of my peers. And absolutely a fantastic topic by Realty Plus team. In today's, specifically I would represent the real estate industry because my firm StudioSW works on two verticals. We do high-end residences, and we work a lot with developers doing their experience centers, sales lounge, and show flats. And coming from that point, I feel this UX is something that inherently, as designers, we get it on board. We as architects are straddling art and technology. An artist works in his own vacuum. He creates a masterpiece and then he sells that. In technology, we are there, or engineers or technical people are there to solve problems. We as designers bridge both the gaps. We try to understand the problem, we come up with a solution, at the same time trying to create a unique product which has got art to it. So I feel as drivers of a UX or a UI, we are the right guys. And when we say UX, UI, as Sachin has rightly said, is we are inherently wired to be UX designers. Because that's what has been trained and taught to us from school day one, to get a client brief, to understand his lifestyle, his aspirations, his usability. So our designs are definitely a product of UX UI.
thanks for clarifying that. And I'm going to ask Jamshed just because we just had a conversation.
The same question. I think Santosh and Sachin have answered it. So what we're saying is we are the original UX designers.
Correct.
We are the UX professionals, and we basically just need to understand that the UX is user experience, and it's the summation of all the feelings that a person has from the start of his experience to the end of his experience. When it comes to like he spoke about light, shade, shadow. So how does that experience of walking through a space with shade, shadow, or some other materials,
creating the environment for people to stay.
Yeah. Then when you walk into a space, does it smell nice? Do you want to create some kind of peace and tranquility in that space, or is it? So it's all about what we've been studying all this time, and it's just now a fancy word, but it is definitely used in a more by professionals for products and for other for other things which may require much more research and sample testing. You need to do that more often because there are multiple or spaces which could be like public spaces where you need that kind of information, and you need that kind of collaboration with these kind of professionals.
So Deepak, throw some light from a product angle about this.
Right. Thank you, Realty Plus, for inviting me for this August panel where I bring in the perspective of the manufacturing and company side, where we bring in the products. So to add to what my co-panelists have talked about UI, UX, user interface and user experience, in my last 20 years of working with multinationals and Indian companies, one value I found in every company which was common is customer centricity. Now, customer centricity, how much do we follow, how much we do depends upon various companies. But one thing which has not changed from time immemorial is the need of the consumer. What is the need of the consumer? The consumer has many needs, as far as they have functional needs and they have emotional needs, and that brings in the perspective of the brand into the picture. As to you can go from point A to point B by any automotive car, but why you choose a A brand versus B brand is your sensory and the emotional needs which are getting fulfilled. Without endorsing any brand here, I've worked in the auto industry. People say a Merc is a Merc is a Merc, or the three-pointed star. This was way back 20 years back when I worked with Fiat company in auto sector. So today there are luxury brands who are into a totally different space. So consumers buy these brands because they can afford them and they want to feel and look good. So from my perspective, from the industry perspective of products, we are filling those gaps as identified by my August panel in terms of how they're creating spaces. Everybody's creating spaces, whether they're creating inside a house or outside, external, or a stadium or a auditorium or anything, that when people come, the only thing that should come out from the mouth is wow. And we are filling in that from our side, from the product side.
Yeah, good one. So, we have, there's a lot of diverse background here. I come from a workplace background. You're from architecture. Santosh, and Sachin's from interiors, and Jamshed ji, architecture. You're from a products company. So is there, is there a gap in understanding? I'm not even going to say UX, I'm say user-centric, approaching it from a user-centric design in the built environment. Is there any gap of understanding between that and the built environment? Is there any strategies you typically adopt to go about collecting your information? Is there something you can share from each of the way you approach a problem or a project or a product?
See, I would say ki as designers and architects, we tend to have a particular way of going about. Like it's like when you say form follows function or function follows form. So that's a debate that's always been there. And I think we have to strike a balance between the both to achieve a good design and create a good UX environment. For example, we are doing this place up in Gujarat, and it's kind of a factory building, and the factory building is separate, and he's got an admin block in the same compound, but the client said that he doesn't want to have it connected, but he still wants to have an experience to when he goes from the factory to the office, it should not feel like he's walking out in the sun or something like that, and all that experience. So we kind of created more like a garden pathway and connected the building with trees and everything, and created a more of a biophilic environment around the whole space, and we've transformed the whole space into more of and now it's going to start looking like it's a forest in it. So when he just comes out of the factory and goes into the office, he doesn't feel like he's in a factory anymore. It's like a completely different environment. So taking his needs and understanding of what he wants, we've created an environment like what would best suit him. So it's that's how you go about designing spaces.
Okay, and from your perspective?
So I have a very interesting case study, if you may say, to share on this. Is specifically with the background of sales lounges and experience centers and show flats, a bang in the middle of COVID, between the first lockdown and the second lockdown, we were called to design an experience center and a show flat for a very well-known developer in the suburbs of Mumbai. So coming now that I'm applying the word of UX to it, since we've established that UX is the word to use, we try to understand what would be the user experience that we are trying to create over here. First of all, you are in the middle of a COVID lockdown. People are scared of leaving their houses. They do not want to go to a public place with 200 other guys, around them. They are scared of their life. At the same time, I am representing a developer who wants to sell 600 flats. So what we came up, we had a sample data. We were trying to understand a few other guys who were during that time, what were the failures. So we did a SWOT analysis. We did a case study on what is the target that we should be focusing on, or rather what is the UX we should be addressing. So I wanted to create a space which seemed hygienic. It seemed open. It was not claustrophobic. It had to be inviting, that a person could be tempted, that he could leave his house and come and see the sales lounge. So we made a grand sales lounge akin to a banquet hall. They had a very grand inauguration function just after the lockdown got over. So people were, as it is, bored of sitting in their houses. They wanted an avenue to go out and see and do something. At the same time, with hygiene in place, with the social distancing, our tables were kept 10 feet apart. So, we had enough social distancing. We had disposable footwear, disposable gloves over there for people to, be safe as such. But which I did in 2020 cannot be replicated today. Because today the industry is totally different. Today there's a saturation of launches. Every single developer would be, perhaps all of us will be getting phone calls from developers saying, hey, we've got this launch, come and see it. So if I had to design that same sales launch today, after 2 years, my strategy will be completely different. So, this was how we've harnessed the power of UX to design a product which was specifically catered to my client.
Yeah, makes sense. And so, Jamshed?
So by and large, we go by the traditional methods of just making sure you get to know your client, just meeting them, putting up maybe a list of questionnaire, which will allow us to understand what is it that they really need, So you create like a discovery questionnaire, and then you put it up to them, and then they don't respond to you properly, and then you just meet them and understand that. But by and large, what I would say is that when it comes to using technology, there are so many new methods of creating an experience which a person could to some extent feel is through virtual reality or through other forms of three-dimensional views or walkthroughs, etc. But that really doesn't give you the entire sense of what the final product would be, because when we're talking about stimulating the senses, that is smell, eyesight, and other things, the technology part could kind of fall short as of now. I'm sure there will be in the very near future some people who could incorporate all of it.
Thanks for that. And from a product perspective?
Yeah, I'll give you an example, 2-3 examples of my career journey. When I was with Frankie, the Swiss company, we were into stainless steel sinks. We are still the world's largest manufacturer of sinks. We do more than 10 million. Initially, when I was in this industry, the trend was most consumers would buy mirror finish sinks, which was the market trend from Nirali, Jaina, Diamond, everybody. And we slowly saw the trend later that there are a lot of consumers shifting towards matte finish. We started calling it the Swiss finish to leverage on the Swiss heritage of Frankie as a company. And one fine day, a day came, we stopped making mirror finish sinks. We said everything switched to matte. And that's what our differentiation is on the Indian competitor. Coming to Kohler, there was a time in India for toilets, the market was ruled by the Paris and the Hindways of the world for a very long time. And then came Kohler in 2010, and they disrupted the market of bathrooms. by bringing in designs and products which are unheard of and unseen before. Most architect firms which I had difficulty getting time with in those days, starting from Hafiz Contractor. But one thing I had a striking notice which I always observed in their office, that people were stunned after looking at the catalog. They never said no to any product. They called me after 1 year, after 2 years, that I have specified your product in so and so space. The only thing they had a prohibition was the price. I said, I can't do anything about the price. But I had always felt elated in my entire career that I never got a no to hear from a designer. Because Herbert Kohler, late Herbert Kohler, he expired recently. He was the guy who would sign on any product, whether it's the Art Factory range or is a regular range. Because he said, I understand consumers like nobody else. It's not I would not say he was arrogant on that. But being a $7 billion company, I think he has a right to make that statement. Now his son runs the company, David Kohler. So I'm coming back and connecting the dot of view. There was a time when normal seat cover was a normal thing. And slowly it started happening. We want soft close seat covers because that we have seen in hotels, and now there came and then came the king of, electronics in bathroom is Toto. They came up with Neorest and they disrupted the luxury of the toilets and said that if you approach my toilet, it wakes up and lifts the seat. And customer, of course, will willing to pay 600,000 rupees for a toilet at the top end of the spectrum. And it also has, I was speaking about some good smell. It cleans. It's got a warm seat. If you are in Srinagar in -10, it also keeps your bum warm. So customer is pampered left, right, and center. But I was with also Panasonic many years, and today Kohler has soft close seat as a normal standard because they want to upgrade. Even for a project, if you want a product with a normal seat, not available because they've stopped manufacturing it. Because you raise the bar for the consumer also, that if you want my product, I don't have that. You might still have Indian companies, not naming them, for that product to be available. But this is how you raise the bar as far as product is concerned. I was with Panasonic selling electronic toilet seat. I struggled big time. I did not do even 1,000 numbers in the country because India we have been told that why do you need an electric toilet seat? Why do you need, maybe in North India? Because we have been, my parents, my grandparents have told us, you need to be tough. You need to be taking cold water bath. What are you talking about, using geysers? But in Bombay, 12 months geysers are used. I was surprised and shocked. How can they use in Bombay? But that's the consumer need. We cannot change it. So we need to be keeping on adapting by giving the consumer the product what he wants and keep raising the bar. So that's what my take was on this subject. Thank you.
So thanks for that. Now, these are all different experiences that you're talking about, but are there any challenges that you face when, you're trying to, challenges that you face when you kind of talk to the client, you think you get an understanding of what he wants, and then you're trying to propose the solution. What are the kind of challenges you face when you come into a situation like that? Are there any challenges? You?
Yeah, this is 10 years back. I got a call from Shri Kamal Malik ji's office and tells me that I am doing Habib Khorakiwala's residence in Alibag and I'm struggling with my in-house junior designer. I said, so what's the problem? And what can Sleek do for you? You inspire him. I want a kitchen like a yacht. I said, you want a yacht in the kitchen? Why? Elno has done it in Germany. I said, that cost 90 lakhs. He said, money is not a problem. I said, sir, I'm really sorry that I come from a standard. My boss keeps telling me that how will we do standardization in my company? If I do a yacht, I'll do a yacht for 1 year, for 1 crore. That discussion went around inspiration. Then finally, he settled for back-painted PU glass shutters, which is very normal. Normal baskets, normal tandem drawers, but his intent was, how can the industry come and do something out of the world? I understand his need completely because he wants to wow Mrs. Khorakiwala, who will be willing to spend any fortune on that villa. When he talks to me about Turkish bath and all these things, I've not even heard, never seen them. To say, hum to ye kar rahe hain, 2 saal se interior chal raha hai. So this is the challenges we face as manufacturers when somebody asks us, requests us that can we do, we definitely want to do. But when you ask one piece, then it becomes a Mona Lisa.
Would you have some examples that you can share from your?
Examples for challenges.
There are a lot, right?
There
Or
are.
not?
They are continuous, especially they're continuous, and it's just again a perception. And if you kind of are willing to put yourself in that person's shoes and understand where they're coming from, that's one way of dealing with any kind of objection or any kind of situation wherein you kind of are compassionate, or you're thinking in that way. That's how I look at it.
So I will add in is I've seen a dramatic change in the perception of people in the industry today. Again, for me, I would say about 5 or 10 years ago, we had to really put our foot down with a few developers and allow them to let us do something very different, something very creative. But otherwise, it was quite run of the mill. Today, I think the industry has been educated very well. We've got platforms where developers are meeting each other, seeing the fantastic work the other guys are doing. So for me, that has been not a barrier now. It's very easy for me to walk into a top developer's office and tell him, look, I have done this. This is what was the industry or the market reception to it. We've achieved this success, and those numbers or that, that whole, I would say the system or the entire environment that we created, everybody wants to replicate that. So today I feel with the kind of products that we have in the market, with the kind of receptiveness that we are meeting across the industry, I would also attribute that to the kind of a boom time that perhaps we in India are looking at in construction. If you see the city of Mumbai itself, there are so many developers. Some of them are new. Earlier we had a few developers who were, I think, doing a lot of work over here. But today there's a lot of fresh input that's coming in. There are new developments in Mumbai. If you look at all across India itself, there are people who are landowners now who are doing joint ventures and coming up with buildings. Everybody now has understood the need to differentiate and stand apart. And perhaps that is where we as designers, with our inherent knowledge of UX and understanding of what a user wants, or perhaps even an understanding of what the developer wants to create, is where we can step in over here and drive the growth ahead,
I'll just add in, we as architects, I do a lot of redevelopment buildings, and I deal with the tenants whom with the developer, we go for these tenant meetings, and we talk to them. So if these people are, they are using say 400 or 500 square feet apartments, and now they're going to be upgraded to 800, 900 square feet because of the surplus area that they get because of the redevelopment that happens. And it's quite a responsibility as an architect to make sure that when you are changing their lifestyle completely, that they do get what they want, and their list is I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. But we as an architect, we can, and with the developer, we can give them, but we make sure that their lifestyle, we make sure that the lifestyle is completely transformed from what they were using to what they are going to get. So eventually, when the product is done and they move into the new apartment, they are in a different space altogether from what they were living to what they've come. The complete experience, right from the entry to the building, the lobbies, the flats, the bathrooms, everything is a complete. They're super happy with the way things go around. So that, as an architect, it's a good feeling to know that you can create an experience for somebody, and at a personal level you can experience these people, their lifestyle has completely changed.
Yeah. No, so I wanted to add to this, which is also one of the reasons I was asking, because as a workplace architect, we design a lot of workplace environments, and we try and bring in a lot of biophilia into the workplace. The biggest challenge is taking care of those plants. Do artificial. So, for me, that's just one of the kind of the smallest examples. So, these are the things that you need to kind of try and talk to them, try and make them understand about the users in the space. It's not about you managing the the space. It's more about what is beneficial for the user of that space. So that's literally what you need to approach it from that angle, rather than trying to say that, it's too difficult and it's too much of a problem for me to try and maintain it. So that was an example from the workplace that I wanted to bring. But then, having said that, I also wanted to understand from you on, do you strategize on some sort of a communication or collaboration strategy to get to the needs of the user when you're approaching any project? So is there something you can talk about in terms of who you should be collaborating with and who you should be communicating with to get the problem statement or the user brief itself?
So I'll take this again. So what we typically do is, I feel inherently, since we are the guys best equipped for this, is I on my projects typically I take the lead of this entire communication.
Yeah.
We are the ones who do our sampling of data. We are the one. So for right now, I'm just talking to Jamshed also, is we inherently land up creating a product. And for us, like we spoke about Nike shoes or we spoke about iPhone, it's a product. When designers start treating their designs as products, that is when the entire UI, UX experience starts coming in. If I am creating my interior as a product, I am the guy who knows it inside out very well. So I should be the guy who should be the driving force. Obviously, if I take an example of an iPhone, yes, there'll be a production company, there will be somebody who will be making those parts. Somebody says this camera of this size is not possible. Perhaps the finance team cuts off the finances somewhere half the time. Or you would have a sales and marketing team saying we have to launch in the next 15 days, even if it's incomplete, launch it. Similarly, for our products, if we are ready with something, a builder would say, perhaps, no, now we cut down the cost or change the timing of this. I am the right guy to take the call whether we are in the right direction or not. If we are perhaps in some way compromising on the product, that is my responsibility to sit down the stakeholders and tell them, listen, this is what we are trying to create for you. And if we are going to have these compromises, it's going to affect the product in such a way. For that, I need accountability from every single member, be it my carpenter, be it my Kedia, be it my sales team, be it even the management who suddenly may actually change the vision halfway through saying, okay, we do not want to create it like this, we want to create it like this. So for me, being designers, we should be the natural drivers for this entire UX process as such.
Anything you want to add, or maybe I can just go
It's
into-
making sure that the communication is with all the stakeholders, and making sure that after all you understand who is the person who's going to drive this communication to a cohesive response. Ultimately, someone has to take the call. So often it is the architect, often it is the owner, but we need to make sure that we through the complete process of communication, we've kind of filtered in what really should be the answer and what should be the response, and kind of make sure that the client chooses what you really want to do. So that's just how you persuade or you cajole him into deciding what needs to be done.
That's where most of our efforts go, right?
So I had a bit of a different flavor to this. When we are a product manufacturing company, the consumer asks for us, because in my previous organization, we are looking at urban customer, we are looking at a rural customer. Because our share of rural is also in Godrej was about 24% and 76% coming from urban, while rural was growing at a faster pace than the urban growth. So we employ agencies who do consumer research, and what we found through various agencies, the rural counterpart consumers' needs are as aspirational as the urban customer. So they are not wanting to settle for anything less. And this is so seen in the evolution of many categories. I was hoping for the iPhone conversation to be brought in somewhere. That
You can just bring it in.
so Steve Jobs actually divided the whole world by saying that the consumer does not know anything.
Yeah.
So it's a very radical statement to make. All our life in B schools, we only learn that ask the consumer, ask the consumer, ask the consumer. in one way, late Steve Jobs is right. Consumers have no time to figure out what pain point my product is giving me. It's for the manufacturer to think and give me 100x more value. And you become a very successful, the word is mass premium. Either you are premium or either you are mass. You can't be both. Apple is an exception to that they are able to command a price for a product and people wait for kilometers outside the stores even before the product is launched, which is unheard of in any category. And they manage with just 4 products, you know. So this is one example. So we do design products through research, consumer, that what is it he'll be finally settling through by doing regional launches and taking the feedback from the consumer. For example, I'm designing a handle in Quba. I have a range at a very premium end called the Soul Collection, which is 10,000 rupees and onwards. But I also have a handle for $1,000. Now my rural counterpart, because I also need to see the commercials of all this, that will he be willing to buy a product at what price? Is he says is okay, not okay. I have a range to cater to all consumer segments, low, mid, high, but I also need to see that I need to enough volumes for the economies of scale to kick in. So from a product manufacturing company, these are the things we take into consideration without compromising on his needs. India is the only country in the world where the smartphone penetration has been the fastest and the strongest anywhere in the world, because we just we suddenly went up from X product to Y product. And that's been the downfall of some companies who, with having the best of consultants, Nokia as an example, went down. They didn't see what was coming. And they ruled the world for so many years when we had the low-end phones. And then BlackBerry is another example. Our corporate guys were swearing by BlackBerries. Where are BlackBerries today? Nowhere to be seen. They've been junked and they are all in the, Mother Earth inside the ground. 2 feet down under. So somebody else has taken that space. Nokia has come back in a different avatar after the Microsoft acquisition. But these are the companies who never saw the winds changing and never had the grip on the pulse of the consumer. What does the consumer want? Yeah. Right? So Samsung and iPhone, they still rule the world, but there are many reasons for it why they are successful.
So Fancy, he's answered a question which was not asked. What happens when you ignore UX? So this is the actual answer for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, now I want to kind of dig a little bit more into this other question, which is relatable to the user, because the user is not just one type. There are many different types of users. There are users who are young, Gen Z, all the way to the much older users. There's also the different genders of users. Then there's also the accessibility that has to be taken care of. Do you kind of drive into research, look at things like universal design principles and use those principles to design your spaces? Is that something that is like, that you do as a practice for all of your projects? And it can be, you can even cite examples from, let's say, retail or even the airport or, anything like that.
See, being designing in the city, and we normally connect with all the people and the spaces. I mean, for the people that we are doing, like say, suppose we are doing a residential complex, then it all starts with, first of all, it starts with the location, in which area you are designing the complex, and then what kind of people are going to come there, what is the surrounding, and who's going to buy the apartment. So all that filters down to what kind of size of the apartment is going to be, and what's the ticket value, what's the sellable value, all that. So it all connects down. So coming to that, we've done this one project at Mira Road, where taking from the standard, like you have your building with you have parking, or you go down under basement parking, and also what we decided to do was, instead of doing all that, we constructed an MLCP on the side, and which is connected to the residential complex. And then by doing so, the whole area under the building, the stilt area, got freed up, and it became a drive-free zone. And we created this nice landscape with cafes and connected it with the club. And it becomes like one huge garden around the building, which normally would have been a parking lot in any normal building. Right. This has become like one big garden. And then first we thought whether it will sell, whether people will go and park the car and come walking 10 minutes. But it has actually had a reverse effect. And people prefer that there are no cars, the kids are playing, they come, they park. And on Sundays, it's more like a happy place. It's absolutely fantastic. So
Nice.
it's, you just have to listen, try out new things of what a user, and you create a different user experience.
Fancy, I want to change the hats here. Since you've done the workspace design, I want to ask this question to you: is how do you incorporate these principles in your workspace design?
Thanks for that. Yeah, so it's honestly just the base principle for me. Basically, I need to be looking at it for pretty much any of our workplaces, because workplaces are places where you find like different types of, nobody talks about it. There's not just 2 genders, there are 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 genders to cater to in the workplace. You know, and they don't come out with it. But you need to be able to cater to all those different genders. There are men who identify as women, women who identify as men. Then there's the other men and women who don't identify as men or women. So, how universally can you create workplaces that are comfortable for all of those different genders? And it's not only that. There is also the people who are, the right terminology is differently abled. They're persons with different abilities. How do you cater to all of that? So this is where we are going with the workplaces in terms of the user experience. And that's something, it needs to be universally accessible to everybody that's going to be using that space. Just take the simple example of your steps. Anywhere, the number of steps, you know what the easy fix for that is? Putting a ramp in there, just kind of snaking around those steps. Instead, you go take a ramp and put it on one corner of the building, and they feel different. They've got to be part of the whole experience. That's your user experience. Everybody needs to be treated equally. It has to be an equitable experience. Then the sense of smell, the sense of, the feel, everything, the welcoming sense of getting into the office. There are so many aspects to this. It's just endless. But here again is where we're talking about, as architects, that's our job.
Yes, yeah.
To go and ask the right question and get all the feedback and build to what we think. I mean, we have to do the thinking for them.
Actually, there are adequate number of books written, even our books which are written by the government, the National Building Code, the NBC. When we talk about universal design, we've got to understand that these are all put down. You just need to go through it and understand it and be compassionate about the needs of the people who are specially abled or who are different from the mainstream. We've always our firm is a multidisciplinary firm. We do projects ranging from public spaces to small interiors, to residential, to office buildings. So we do all kinds of projects. In the public buildings, it's kind of, although it's there, you've got to make sure it's put into place. It's incorporated. And like you said, you've got to have those ramps. You just don't have it for the sake of having it.
Yeah, but we do that. I mean, I think in most of the buildings that we design, we do at least the ramps are taken care of.
Ramps are
without that, I
definitely,
don't think we do
that's
anything.
the most common.
Yeah, that's the most common
thing. But like recently, we did a salon for an LGBTQ community who would run the salon, and anyone can come in. Whether it's, there are lots of people who aren't queer, who aren't lesbian or gay or whatever, and they just come in for a haircut because these people, you're giving them their job to do this salon treatment or whatever you want. So it's that.
Can I add on to this? Now, I'm very curious about this, okay? How different would a physical requirement be in a situation like this? I mean, how would you differentiate? See, I can understand somebody physically differently abled, where you need a ramp or something like that. But in this scenario, what were your thoughts when you try to do something like this? How did you create an environment where everybody felt safe? Did you have some things in your mind at that time?
No, I think it's more the perception. It's breaking that barrier that, it's just like a normal salon, just a little more fancy. And there are some basic etiquette and some kind of expectations that you should expect from the service provider, and that kind of makes you comfortable. And the fact that you're going to a space like this, you are kind of open to it to that extent. So I think it's more perception change, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Because I think this is a very evolving kind of a sector. Like
And
if-
an emotional thing. What you're saying is physical to emotional.
Exactly.
So again, when it comes to emotional, I would say that you've got to have. I've seen in the recent past in India, toilets which said, which
Are you happy?
male, male, female, and for others, people who identify as male.
So
or
that's
female.
like a standard in workplaces now. So, but I think it's not yet there out in the. I mean, it's there in the I think the airports are. It's there, but out in more public spaces, that's something I think needs a little bit more of a push.
Yeah.
Right. I think I want to try and jump into this big question on technology integration and what is it that you use in terms of bringing that experience for a user from a technology perspective. You had some few examples to talk about it. So I think it's important to jump into that as well.
So again, when we saw your email, or rather when Realty Plus came up with the UX brief, I was sharing it with my colleague. Actually, like, this is all about software design. It's like UX, UI. You're going to talk about software. I said, no, I'm not talking about software. We're talking about user experience and user integration as such. So yes, now that we are talking about software aspect of it, in our industry now, during COVID, we were working with a developer who's actually done an entire virtual show flat tour. So like typically at that point, when I talk about the pandemic, that was a very unheard of, unthought of, unseen situation where people randomly came up with solutions. We never in our life thought that we'll be sitting at home for like months and months locked up together. So again, the beauty of this would be people coming up with solutions where you can sit at home and you can tour an apartment somewhere in Navi Mumbai, perhaps. So here we had clients from Dubai or London who were sitting and trying to look at an investment. We designed an entire virtual show flat for them to give them an experience of how the apartment would look when they physically go there. By that time, they could not travel. What we did is typically these virtual show flats become very generic. You'll typically have a walkthrough, you'll have a lobby, there'll be some statement down below saying that's the lobby with so and so height. Here they had created a very unique innovation is they had actually a live sales agent with an avatar. So when you're walking in and you're moving your cursor and you're seeing the living room, you actually have a guy standing next to you. You can see his picture and he's talking to you. So either he's chatting with you or he's talking to you. So if you have a question there, okay, what are my ceiling heights? He is telling you, okay, your ceiling height is 10 feet. Rather than, we seeing the brochure and understanding. So that I felt was a very beautiful innovation. Perhaps after the pandemic and people started moving in again to physically experiencing show flats, that perhaps has died down somewhere. But that was a very good innovation, which I felt was right for its time.
But it needs to have the physical experience as well
It
to
does,
work
but
beautifully.
in interiors also still clients do come back and they, in spite of showing them just 3D renders, they want to have that VR experience.
Yeah.
So we are working on that basis also, where we have the 3D and then we give the VR headset to the client and then he kind of gets a feel of the entire space even before the place is happening.
So when it comes to VR, it's not only just what you are guiding, like he said, that that there is someone to question and there's someone to answer. So you are questioning, there's someone to answer. Even in VR, now the aspect could be that can the client change the material himself? So he's got this palette of materials for a countertop, okay, and then he can actually physically do it himself, or you could make it. And when does it become popular, or when does it become something which can be done more often with more clients and more architects, is when it is easy for that client to do it. If you ask him that, oh, you wear this and then you have to do this and you've got to train him to do it, then that's going to be very difficult. So that's the UX part, the technology to simplifying things, to make sure that a client himself could change the material and tell your architect or your associate that I prefer silver leafing to gold leafing, because I changed the floor and now the silver leafing looks better in my perception.
Let me tell you, once the client starts doing that, then you are in trouble.
Exactly, I was going to say that. Yes, then you are out of the scene, boss.
then your side never get over.
That's where you.
So you don't.
That's
Rather
where
you keep the client, tell him ki yehi hai. You
Yeah.
want something, you let me know. We will.
True, I
So
do
he
agree.
came up with the in between. He said there's a fixed palette, 2 or 3 different options. Utna hi karo, not more than that. Perhaps.
That is where the next gen of architects will say, okay, like you said, just give them the 3 palettes which will go well. So you've got to choose the flooring and the gold leafing or the silver leafing. So the options you're providing them is something which will ultimately come to a great solution either ways.
But Sachin, I get your point. I dread that interiors with silver leafing and gold flooring. No, I'm just saying just generally if they start mixing matching.
No, they cannot. They cannot.
They
So
shouldn't.
that's the software part where they cannot get that choice. The choices are built into the software in such a way.
But are you experiencing that with technology fully, or do you need the physical aspect as well? Because there's nothing like touch and feel. That's maybe I'm old school, but I'm coming from there saying that.
I'm totally
you
old school. I still do
cannot-
mock-ups. I still want to feel my surfaces, but
That's correct.
this is the forum about UX. So
UX.
No, I think it works both ways. It's not necessary. I mean, of course, the touch and feel is there, but that's after the product is done. The initially to get there and to convince a client, I think it's a great way to move forward and easier for the client to understand. And today everything is available on the phone, on everything, on Google, everything is there. So you just can't fool a client anymore. So it's rather you show him everything and then move on, because that's how it is.
Right. Did you have anything to add, Deepak?
Yeah, I said that while this thing is taking shape in many companies, that can you show them the products if you have a vast range on the virtual platform, but I still feel in interior space, the experience center is still here to stay for a very long time. The first thing I learned in my first company, Frankie, was see, touch and feel is the mantra for us for last 100 years. I don't think it's going to be changing anywhere soon. I want to see it, I want to touch it, I want to feel it. We have come a long way on buying things online. We now buy books freely online. Amazon tried it many years back. It was too early for that as an innovation, but innovation is something which is a diffusion of innovation. The law is, introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. Yeah. We will get comfortable to buy everything. We are buying the stuff today in 19 minutes, on various platforms. I don't want to market any one of them, but when I see in my elevator, guys walking in from these companies, I wonder that bread also gets run out, in the morning, and it's a need for some household. It's not been planned. So everything will work in India, because the ultimate thing is all this is for human convenience and well-being. We want to save time, and ultimately when we would have saved all the time in the world, we will have no idea what we'll be doing with that.
So to sum it all, now there's just 1 minute left, but in one word that describes UX in the built environment.
I think striking a balance between the technology and the real world. I think that's where it's the user experience lies. Absolutely.
for me, is UX equals to the designer.
Summation of all the senses in that experience.
And Deepak.
I feel from consumer goods side that customer is finally the king and the queen. and they can make you and break you. Thanks.